Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Cavan-Smith. Tonight, Kenya's presidential election reruns are pushed back to October 26th. That's 9 days later from the original date of October 17th. This, as President Uhuru Kenyatta strongly criticises the court decision to nullify his re-election. He calls it a judicial coup. Also, unrest continues in Togo. Opposition protesters march once again in Lomé, demanding constitutional change. And Cameroon's government sends envoys into schools to target preteens with messages of unity. It's an unusual approach in their bid to suppress unrest in the English-speaking regions, accusing the state of marginalizing them. But first, Kenya's fraught rerun of last month's presidential election has been pushed back 9 days. Earlier this month, the Supreme Court annulled President Uhuru Kenyatta's August victory because the Electoral Commission didn't check the counting of ballots properly before announcing. A new poll had been set for October 17th, but on Thursday, the council rescheduled for the 26th because of requirements for the new election set out by the court and problems with the tech needed. Meanwhile, Kenyatta's ruling Jubilee Party is still furious over the need for a rematch, and the president said that he's the victim of a judicial coup. Our Julia Steers joins us with more from Nairobi. Julia, so why is Kenyatta still gunning for the Supreme Court judges, even though it's the Electoral Commission who acted illegally?
Right. Well, for Kenyatta, it's really never been about the legitimacy of the election that he won on August 8th or the integrity of this electoral commission. He believes that the race that they ran in August was a credible one. He cited the words of international monitors and saying that he believes that election result stands. And for him, he's made it very clear that he's disagreed with the decision of the court since they annulled the election on September 1st. And what's worrisome to a lot of people here is that he's just continued to ramp up these attacks on the judiciary. Today, we heard him say that this was a judiciary coup. He also said that this was a monstrous injustice to the Kenyan people. So it's really never been about the credibility of this previous election for him or the Electoral Commission, and he's continuing his attacks on the judiciary, which has many people wondering if he does win this rerun election, if there will be any repercussions for the Supreme Court or for the justice system here in Kenya.
So, Julia, the vote's been pushed back now. It's on the 26th. What is the Commission going to do with those extra 9 days?
Well, the Electoral Commission told me today that they are still going through this very detailed ruling that the Supreme Court released yesterday, and they have yet to really let us know any exact measures that they're going to take. But what they have to do is address what the court called widespread failures to ensure the transparency and the verifiability of the polls. So in the last election, everything went okay at the polling stations. The issues really came into play with the tallying and the transferring of the vote, and then cross-checking the physical votes with their servers and with their tech systems. So they have a lot of work to do on the technological side. They're working with a French firm that said there was no way that they could be in place by October 17th. So that's part of the reason that this vote has now been pushed back an extra 9 days. And we expect to hear more clear answers from the Electoral Commission in the coming days about what concrete steps they will take to make sure that this next election is a credible one.
Thanks very much. Julia Steers there for us in Nairobi. Now, the mayor of Kampala was amongst dozens of people arrested in Uganda on Thursday as police clashed with protesters demonstrating against plans to extend the upper age limit for the presidency. It currently stands at 75, and a bill to remove the age restriction is likely to be introduced next week. If successful, it would allow 73-year-old President Yoweri Museveni, in power for more than 30 years, to run again in 2021. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, the former AU chief and ex-wife of South Africa's current president, has moved a step closer to her expected bid for leadership of the ruling ANC party when Jacob Zuma's mandate runs out in December. On Thursday, she was sworn in as an MP. It gives her a platform to raise her profile before the upcoming party leadership conference at the end of the year. Meanwhile, strident critic of Zuma, Makosi Kaza, quit the ruling party on Thursday, denouncing it as having become alien and corrupt. And at least a dozen people have been killed in flooding in 2 villages in eastern DR Congo. Dozens more are still missing after torrential rains hit Bihambwe and Matanda in Masisi territory. Extreme weather began on Tuesday and caught farmers returning from fields by surprise. Well, unrest continues in Togo. Opposition protesters marched once again in Lomé on Thursday, demanding constitutional change. Demonstrators, frustrated with the 5 decades President Faure Gnassingbé's families run the country, have accused security forces of using excessive force. Nicolas Chemin tells us more.
Large crowds took to the streets of Sokode in central Togo. It's the stronghold of Tikpia Chadam, one of the country's main opposition figures. Demonstrators are demanding the resignation of President Faure Gnassingbé. His family has been in power in Togo for 5 decades. Some protesters set up roadblocks.
We are here in the streets for a reason. We demand another constitution, new institutions. We are fed up. The same rulers for 50 years. We want a revolution.
Amnesty International told France 24 that it was very concerned by the situation in the northern town of Mango, where a child was killed on Wednesday. The NGO said soldiers were chasing demonstrators and entering their houses. It added that hundreds of people have started fleeing to Ghana. The opposition also protested in the capital, Lomé.
You can hear all the protesters around me. They're calling on President Faure to step down. This is our priority. We must work towards this goal. I think it will be attained within the coming weeks.
The president's supporters also gathered in the streets of Lomé. The ruling party appealed for calm.
We should do what is in the best interest of this nation. Peace and unity are the priority, so we can maintain the well-being of the people.
The opposition is against a referendum that should take place in the coming months. The project would limit the number of presidential terms to 2, but the measure would not be applied retroactively. This means Gnassingbé could run again twice and stay in power till 2030.
Now, it's the start of the new school year in Cameroon, and authorities are trying a new approach in their tackling of months of unrest in the English-speaking regions of the country, as minority groups there protest increasing marginalization. Now, the government's employed teams that go into schools using popular cartoon characters to push their message home for the young.
The raising of the flag at the beginning of the school year in this high school in the suburbs of Yaoundé. The national anthem is bellowed forth by around 1,000 students, a special ceremony conceived by the state as a response to protests that have shaken the English-speaking regions of the country for 11 months.
We must help children respect national emblems, respect the laws of the Republic. We have started the battle against incivility at the Youth Ministry, and we started with the youngest.
With children so young, the concepts are grasped quickly and unquestioningly.
I learned today that national emblems are the symbolic symbols of the state, and we have to respect the national flag.
Courses in civic education with a strong emphasis on patriotism are being encouraged, like in this high school science class where they've been given a lesson on national unity.
What's national unity?
National unity is the feeling of brotherhood that we must all have.
The teacher has one objective: to set aside the idea of separatism among the students.
Everything we tell them is to encourage unity. Our aim is to help them become ambassadors to their English-speaking brothers, to help them understand that we are one nation.
The campaign aimed at the youth has been labelled the return of patriotism. It includes the distribution of thousands of copies of the national anthem in both French and English for all schools across the country.
According to statistics, there are about 8 million students in Cameroon, and we want to reach each one of these students.
Government has been criticised for using anti-terror laws to silence reporting on the unrest in the country's English-speaking regions. It will take more than the distribution of the national anthem in 2 languages to quell tensions.
And finally, the US president's shown how Africa sparks his imagination. During a meeting with leaders from the continent in New York on Thursday, Donald Trump twice referred to the non-existent country of Nambia, but not before he managed to show his affection for Ghana's president. Before Trump headed up to the podium, he gave him a little friendly tap and then began singing the praises of Nambia.
Ethiopia, Ghana, Guinea, Nambia, Nigeria, Senegal, Uganda. Nambia's health system is increasingly self-sufficient.
It's a pretty peaceful place. Not much happens there. That's why we probably don't talk about it very much. That is, though, where we're going to have to leave it now for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again.